Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
Now, we had an episode ago or 2 episodes ago where we brought up The Association, this band, The Association, which apparently were huge in the United States and they were huge in the UK. Neither of us have any idea still.
Yeah, so in the episode, we were discussing this, and you guys will already know this because last week's episode was the most songs ever played, or most hits on the radio or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the band came up, and we're like, oh, okay. And the episode, we're just like, we just don't know it by name. No, me and Tim proceeded to go after the episode and listen, and like, deer in the headlights, no clue. Yeah, never heard it.
It's weird. It's almost as if they invented this act. What they call it, like a Mandela effect thing.
They're just messing with us. The only song that, so of course we get on the Wikipedias of the interwebs, and they have a song called Windy, the one that's like everyone knows it's windy. To be fair, me and Tim had one time discussed, I said, who sings that? And Tim's like, I don't know. So we Googled it and we were like, The Association. And we never thought anything of it again. So then when we did this with this song we've never heard, it dawned on me it's the same band. But it's bizarre.
It's incredibly weird. I mean, I feel between us, we're pretty versed in the world of music. And I mean, both of us have a knowledge going back to the 50s, 40s, if I said a name to you, Ella Fitzgerald, I mean, you would have heard of the name if you didn't know of any of her songs, for example.
Exactly. Yeah, but nothing. The Association is like Tim said, it's like a made up band that was put on this listicle to mess with us or something.
It's so incredibly bizarre. But anyhow, so here at the top of the show, let's get into our music news and other segments. I think Joy has some music news for us this week.
I don't know if it counts as new. I mean, it's kind of news because it came up when I maybe gave a Goog to Google News or music news. But I just thought this was kind of a cool thing because it plays into what me and Tim have talked a lot about concerts. So it says this was released today, July 13th. I'm giving away a secret, everybody. That's when this was recorded. But it says more than 1 million people attended live music events in London last week. Apparently, that was a huge number they hadn't seen in a long time. Mm. Over 1 million people attended at least one. There was 22 concerts in London this past week.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's just, big concerts, your Wembley Arenas and your Hammersmith Odeons and stuff, not your grassroots playing in a pub type thing.
Well, they said there was 2 sold-out Bruce Springsteen concerts at Hyde Park. Blur was 2 nights at Wembley Stadium. The 1975 sold out a show in Hyde Park. And then there was also Billy Joel and Lana Del Rey.
Okay,
there's some examples.
Yeah, I mean, that's some really big names, your Bruce Springsteens and your Billy Joels. I mean, normally in London, there's a lot of concerts going on. Typically there's something at the Hammersmith Odeon or something at Wembley or something like that. Mm-hmm. But it must have been just the time of year and then the various touring schedules all just came together to create that.
Yeah, and basically what they're saying is the amount of gigs they have supercharged the city's economy with an estimated 320 million euros. Of ticket sales, in addition to all the hotel room, eating out, public transportation, everything that came into it. And they said that is a big thing for music to be the glue that holds London together. It's a big area, but they're just saying this was probably the most amount of concerts that's ever happened in a week.
There we go. Completely unprecedented.
I mean, I just thought it was random, and it should make you sad because you kept saying that you should have went to more concerts when you were right there.
I should have. I mean, the amount of acts that came through London, and it was just right there. And I didn't go to see them. It's ridiculous in hindsight, especially with the fact that the tickets were so cheap back then. I'm really kicking myself. I mean, I got to see some great stuff, and I'll never forget my 1993 experience of seeing the Brian May Band and then Van Halen about 2 months later. I mean, that was fantastic. And, other acts I've seen through the years, AC/DC and, you name it. But as you sit here now and you see these people touring and you think, yeah, I could have seen them at the Hammersmith Odeon for £25 or something.
I was going to say, and the cost compared to what it is now is the biggest thing.
Oh, it's absolutely absurd. As we've discussed many times, Concert prices are absolutely absurd.
That's going to be on the next bingo card. Joy and Tim complaining about Ticketmaster and or concert cost because it's just ridiculous. All right, now I think Tim has some music news and some personal news.
Yes. So the first piece of music news is that the Barbie movie has come out. Are you aware of the Barbie movie?
I am, and I want to go see
it. Well, I saw the trailer of it, or to be honest, I saw an ad on Twitter for it, to be perfectly honest. And I can't say this is anything that would ever be appealing to me. However, apparently Wolfgang Van Halen and Slash both play on the soundtrack album.
It has a very extensive soundtrack, apparently. I've heard that.
Yeah, I was surprised because Wolfgang Van Halen posted up a thing saying that he was attending the premiere. And he said, he said, I'm playing a solo on the incidental music. And I thought, really?
That's crazy. So it's weird you bring this up, Tim, because Charlie, who I give a lot of hard time about sometimes because he doesn't really know a whole lot when it comes to music knowledge, but he's got me beat on like movies and IT stuff and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't really matter. But he was talking to me today and he said, did you know that Aqua, Barbie Girl, the song, was actually sued by Mattel when it came out? I did not know that. And he said, apparently the judge actually threw it out and he told him, Mattel to chill out, his exact words. And I didn't believe Charlie. I was like, you made that up. I Googled it. No, the headline says remember the Barbie Girl song Mattel actually sued, was told to chill. So Charlie was right. There you go, everybody. I seriously was like, you made that up. But apparently that happened. I missed that whole thing.
Maybe it comes under sort of fair use type thing. I don't know.
He basically just said that it was a precedent for free speech because they never directly. Barbie is a general word, you know what I mean? And so I just
because people are called Barbie, and people were probably called Barbie before the doll existed.
Yeah, and so basically they said that because the song, it's kind of risque. If you've never actually listen to the words of Barbie Girl, go back and do that, pause the podcast, and then come back to us. And that's all I'm going to say. But they said that it was creating an image they didn't like. And he's like, well, it never specifically says Mattel. It doesn't say, it just says Barbie. Mm-hmm. So there you go. But yeah, Charlie was right.
Well, an interesting side note, and in the UK, I think we had Barbie. I mean, I wasn't playing with Barbies, but I mean, we had Barbie. But in Woolworths, they sold Cindy, which is the same idea. we had Cindy instead of Barbie.
Yeah, if you went to a certain store, like I don't know, what's a good example? What's that store that used to have the blue light special that was like only around for like 3 years? It doesn't matter. I think those off-branch Walmart type stores, Tim, that are a little bit smaller. You got like, I don't know if her name was Sydney or if it was Brittany or Tina or whatever, but she was out there. Yeah, there you go.
Well, there we are. Okay, so a piece of personal music news. I'm very excited about this, and I'm excited to delve in. So a coworker gave me 2 massive Case Logic folders full of CDs. Now, I'm very particular when it comes to my CD collecting, in so much as that I like to have all the inserts. The discs need to play and not skip or anything like that. And I like everything to be in good quality. So if I'm collecting something, I like to make sure it's all full and complete. However, these Case Logic folders do not have all the inserts. There's a bunch of CDR. In fact, there's about 40% CDRs. And some of them don't appear to be in good condition. But I couldn't be more excited about this, to delve in and see what's in there. It's almost like it's a window into someone's soul.
See, that's what's interesting to me, is that would be the fun part. And, there's going to be some things in there that surprise you. So it's almost better you don't have like the inserts and everything that's telling you. So it's more of a surprise.
Yeah. And in fact, I like the ones where it just says like Mix 7. I'll be interested to know what went on Mix 7. That's the bit I'm looking forward to. And
that makes me wish, I really wish I had some of the CDs I burned back in the day, Tim, because I would write all over those and they'd have different titles and I put different like designs all over them. And there would probably be some that said Mix 7 and then somewhere I wrote every song that's on it.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, I've got one of the folders here and I'm showing Joy on camera.
It's a big black one we all had back in the day.
I've one here called Corn Mix, as in the band Corn.
And then you're going to actually listen to it, and it's not going to have any corn on it. They're just songs about corn.
It could be some Depeche Mode. SK8 Drive Mix.
Skate. SK8 is skate.
Skate Drive Mix. Classic mix. Look at that. Classics mix. I don't know. I am so excited at this prospect. I really am. I've already I decided I was going to pull one out a day so I could savor this exercise.
That's what I was going to say. You should just do like when you get home from work every day. One day go like every day, just one goes in and you're like, I wonder what we're getting today. Eeny, meeny, miny, moe it.
The one yesterday was a regular Glass Mastered CD, and it was a demo of a band, a one-track CD like demo of some band I'd never heard of. It actually sounded pretty good, but I listened to it. I thought, okay, this is how we're starting out.
Maybe you'll learn some bands you didn't even know. Maybe the association's on there.
Maybe it might say association mix.
I would die. If you find that, you must report back on the podcast because that'd be hilarious.
Oh, I will. And then the other thing, just closing out the news section. So Threads has launched. Now, as many people know, I'm very active on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Tim O'Sullivan, but without the A on the end. So it's VN, not VAN. And I've liked Twitter for a long time. What I like about it is that you can filter the timeline chronologically. You can block accounts that you don't want to see. And also you can block keywords. So there's political figures you don't want to get involved with, world events you don't want to get involved with, sports that you don't like. You slap that all in keyword blocking, and then you get a very nice pure feed of things that you like. And there's cool people on Twitter. I've met very cool people on Twitter, people I now consider friends just from text exchanges. It's really cool.
Yeah.
But as we know, Elon Musk has basically ruined Twitter over the course of 3 or 4 months. Actually, when did he buy it? Last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
Yeah, so this year it's really started to go down the pan, and the platform is unstable. A lot of unsavory characters are back on it. It's a whole thing. So Mark Zuckerberg has started this thing called Threads. Now, Threads is built on Instagram, meaning it looks much the same idea, but the principle is a text exchange. Now, I've played with it, and it's fine. And there's so many people on it already, because if you have an Instagram account, you just say, sign me up for Threads, and boom, you're in business. But I will say one thing I don't like about it is at the moment, it doesn't have a timeline of all the people you follow. And as a result of that, it's hard to engage with the people you like.
Well, I mean, I feel like it's probably going to be like any of these apps. It'll probably go through different like updates, and you may see that eventually. Yeah,
I'm following the lead developer of Threads on Threads. and of my understanding, reading between the lines, is that it wasn't ready for release. They'd been working on it for a while. There was various feature sets that they hadn't finished yet. But of course, Twitter had this thing where they decided that you could only see 600 tweets a day, and then it came up with rate limit exceeded because they didn't pay Google's bill for hosting.
Because they're hurting for so much money, Tim.
Yeah. So they decided to launch sort of ahead with basic features, but the lead developer says that the curated following timeline is going to come. There's going to be an edit button. There's going to be search. There's going to be hashtags. There's going to be all this kind of stuff. So I think they were completely overwhelmed at how popular it was. He said that at this point, they're just keeping the lights on with it because there's so many people signing up for it, but they've got like a list of things that will be releasing soon. So I don't know. Once it's got search, hashtags, and a following thing, it's basically becomes Twitter again.
And I mean, I'm not really complaining. I mean, Twitter kind of looks like a dumpster fire at the moment, Tim.
It does. And I worry about the longevity of that platform. I mean, I'm happy that there's now a viable option. I mean, there was lots of like little things that they came out with, like Post, and there's Blue Sky was another platform that some people had an invitation for. And there was Mastodon, which was far too complicated for the average user to comprehend. So I don't know, maybe it will achieve mass adoption. Now, of course, it comes from the Facebook family, which not everybody likes. And I think it was very smart of Mark Zuckerberg to brand it Instagram and not brand it Facebook, because Facebook has it's kind of a taint to it to some degree.
Well, and I think that the issue for me, at least, is like, what's sad is a lot of people complain about Meta and then they complain about Facebook, but they don't know that Meta owns Facebook. And so by making this Meta for Instagram, they might not make the association, sadly.
No, and that's probably true. I mean, obviously, we all know it's under the same
Even your
umbrella.
Oculus headset is owned by the same people,
Yeah, Hannah's got one of those, and I put it on once. I put it on once for about 2 minutes, and it made me feel seasick, so I took it off.
I have two, and there's this one guitar game that it's too bad you didn't like it, Tim, because it's kind of fun because it's actually playing the guitar. It's kind of cool, and you're like without anything in your hands. But I mean, I like it. It's actually really good exercise, and weirdly enough, even though I'm one of those people that we know I struggle with hand-eye coordination, obviously, but there are certain video games I'm really good at, and there's this one called Beat Saber, and basically you hold things and you have to do it to the beat of the music. And I'm actually really good at it. Charlie was shocked at how good I was at this one game. Don't know why, but I think because it was just music related. And all you have to do is keep up with the beat, but you have to move in time.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen videos of Beat Saber. But anyhow, I think that maybe give it a few weeks or so, and I think we'll probably be setting up a No Name Musicast Threads account. And we will see where it goes from there.
Well, technically, will be real soon, Tim, because I have Threads on my phone and it asks me every time, do you want to switch accounts? And No Name Musicast pops up. So.
well, there we go. Maybe we'll be active over on Threads. Who can say? But yeah, by the time this episode posts, Twitter could have tanked for all we know.
There'll be something completely Threads 3.0 have already been released, and they'll be like, they're talking in the past.
Exactly. As everybody knows, we normally have 2 to 3 weeks in the bank as a rule. So you get this news slightly later.
Yep. There we are. Well, I mean, for us, it's relatively new, but we did spend one episode talking about, I think, like the 300s, like instead of the 1300s, like the literal 300s. So it's pretty new for us.
There we are. Okay. All right. So let's get into this week's topic. It's my turn to pick the topic. Joy doesn't know what I've picked as ever. And this week, I decided to have a celebration. So we are celebrating artists who are 75 years and older. Now, there are lots of rock stars, lots of legends who are at least 75 years old. And we're not dwelling on the fact that they're older and later on in their life. We're celebrating that they're still out there getting it done and rocking. All of the people on this list are still out there playing in some capacity. So we are celebrating their lives and we're celebrating their longevity.
And what you guys don't know is Tim is actually turning 75 this year, so he needs to keep up the hype.
Well, give or take a little bit, more or less.
Something 24, 72. All right. That's the most vague numbers I could come up with. 24, 72. All right. So what are our artists then?
Okay. So I've compiled a list of the artists who are 75 and above. And I also have some music from those artists. So I was very surprised actually to find this out. And this is what I'm going to open with. I'm going to open with Daryl Hall and John Oates. And I'm going to have the song Out of Touch. And what's interesting, I didn't realize Daryl Hall is 76 and John Oates is 75.
They both look really good for their age then.
Yeah, I mean, both of them. I mean, I've seen pictures of them recently. Mm-hmm. And they look good. And they're still touring as Hall and Oates. And I mean, I know you have your Daryl Hall beef, as it were. Yeah. But I mean, when
he's
you see
a super villain, but anyway.
Yeah, and I saw a video. Someone was at a concert of his recently. I think of some people that I know who are in their mid to late 70s. Yeah. And then you think of like Daryl Hall and John Oates, and I would have not put them in the same category.
I mean, I would have said 50s, maybe even 60s, but 70s. Because see, in my mind, when I think about 70s, my grandmother, who I was not very close to any of my grandparents. This is just pure, like, they passed away physically. We didn't live physically close together. I had one grandparent that I was relatively close with, and that was my grandma on my mom's side. And she died when she was 73. And I think about the way she was at 73 when she passed away to what you're saying. And I think about when I see Daryl and John, and the math's not mathing, Tim. It doesn't equal up.
No, I don't know. Maybe a lot of these legends are made of different stuff. I mean, I remember seeing Les Paul, the legendary Les Paul. I saw him twice at the Iridium Club in New York City. Mm-hmm. And on the first time I saw him, I think he was like 93. And then the second time I saw him, he was like 97 or something like that. And yes, he was a very old man at that point. Very, you could get getting on and off stage was, he had to have help to help him get on. But his mind was like sharp as a tack, and his guitar playing was great.
So weird. I don't know. I mean, you have to remember they have a lot more money than us, so that could also be a big factor.
Well, that's true. But equally, a lot of these legends abuse substances and abused their bodies, back in the day. But, maybe you can fix that with money. I don't know.
There's a lot of profit to be. Talk to Dolly. She knows a lot about how to put money into yourself. I mean, gosh, though. Neither of them even physically. Well, I will say, if I had to pick one that I would have thought was older, I would think Oates is older than Hall, just by the way they look.
Yeah, but Hall is 1 year older.
That's crazy. See, I would have, because I have seen John Oates has like a lot, his face kind of looks a little older if you zoom in very closely and you ignore the hair and the mustache. Mm-hmm. And so I might have thought that's just weird. I'm just rationalizing it. No. But anyway, the song You're Out of Touch is a great song about a guy who's out of touch with his partner. We didn't talk at all about that.
And as you know from a previous episode, if you need to hear some Hall Oates at any time, there's a hotline that you can call. Go back a few episodes and actually dial it live on air. So if you ever have an emergency, as often people do about Hall Oates, you can always call that number.
Fair enough. I will say this one is one of the songs that I get stuck in my head a lot. Just the part, you're out of touch, that gets in my head all the time.
Oh, I mean, the greatest hits of Daryl Hall and John Oates is an amazing collection of music. They have so many good songs.
Oh, yeah. And they're one of those bands that sometimes it's kind of like mind-boggling if you tried to like quantify the amount of hits they have. Like another one is Eagles, not the Eagles. We were just having this discussion the other day at a friend's place, and I said Eagles, and we were talking about you can't use the. I was at a housewarming party, and there was a small child there, and he was like, "Who is better?" He thought we were talking about like the sports team, the Eagles, and he was like, "Da da 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 da," and he was like, "Do you like the Eagles?" And I was like, are we talking sports or music? And he went, sports. I went, I'm not the one. Sorry, friend. And somebody else answered about the sports, but I was like, not me.
Well, maybe that's the difference. The sports is the Eagles, and then the music is just Eagles.
I mean, it feels weird to say Eagles. So you can't really get mad at people for naturally wanting to say the Eagles because that's the way we speak. Do you know what I mean, Tim?
Sure, but then again, I don't want Don Henley knocking on my door at 3:00 in the morning and just doing an audit.
And he would. And he'd find any video you made a cover of on YouTube and rip it down. All right. Okay. But anyway, that's another band that like I think of when I think of Hall & Oates, that they just have an extreme amount of hits.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. All right, well, let's move on to the next one. So this one, I believe, is the oldest person on the list.
Okay.
And this is our friend Willie Nelson.
Oh.
Willie Nelson, who's still out there getting it done. And he's probably high right now. And he is 90 years old.
All the medical things that he takes is what's kept him alive, Tim.
Absolutely. And I'm picking the track On the Road Again. And as far as I know, he's still out there playing and touring.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, he absolutely is. I've seen like pictures of him. To be fair, though, I don't know if I would have put him in his 90s, but he has looked old since I was a small child.
Yeah, I tell you who he's like, and maybe this is the first time he was ever compared to it. Hulk Hogan.
It's true.
Like Hulk Hogan at age 29 looks like he was in his late 50s and then has looked the same ever since.
It's exactly what it is. It's like they get to a point and so they look young, then they just look old and they just like it never changes. Like they hit a point and it just like flips the switch.
Yeah, so Willie Nelson started looking like he was about 65 in his 40s, and he's just looked the same ever since.
Yes, he really has. And so, I mean, I like whatever I was talking about my mom with like school teachers. It's kind of weird when you had a school teacher that's still teaching and you think to yourself, they were old when I had them. Like, you know what I mean? You're like, how old are they now? That's not to insult them. They may be very intelligent and great teachers, but your brain thinks that. It's like, oh yeah. Anyway.
There we are. But anyway, Willie Nelson, he famously has that Martin classical acoustic guitar he calls Trigger, which has a big hole in the front of it because he's played it so much. Mm-hmm. And so many classic and iconic songs from Willie Nelson. But I just decided to pull out the song On the Road Again.
Well, I do know that he actually started out as a DJ, weirdly enough.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a DJ in Texas before he started. I mean, I'm pretty sure he probably already was a musician and, he was just working as a DJ on the side or something. But I know that before he started making music that went, on the national level, he was working as a disc jockey.
Well, there we go. He started working as a disc jockey in the 1800s.
Willie Nelson's probably like, you guys are rude. I actually love Willie Nelson.
We're not making a judgment on the age. We are celebrating that they've made it to this milestone and that they are still with us and they're still making people happy with their music.
Well, and he's done a lot of good stuff for activism. Willie Nelson's a really big philanthropist.
He's sort of from the Neil Young type mindset of activism.
Yes. Which is some of my favorite type of activism. But I mean, Farm Aid was a great concert. If you've never watched it, go back. It really, he was raising money for relief for farmers. They were in a downturn, different things like that. He tends to do what Dolly says. And this is not to insult anyone. I don't care who you help or where they're at. I understand we don't live in silos anymore, right, Tim? The world is global at this point.
Sure.
And so, but he tends to do that thing where he likes to help his local communities that he grew up in before he goes out and helps outside, like a Bono or something. So Dolly's always said, when she does all the big stuff for Tennessee, and Tim and me can tell you, she's always doing disaster relief and different events and the book club and all that stuff. She says, you can't help. She wants to help her home before, that's like her big thing. And it's not and so I think Willie Nelson does that too. And that's where Farm Aid came from. Yeah. He grew up in Texas.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why I like that. I mean, I'm doing it on a much smaller level, but that's why I like the thrift shop just around the corner, because they help local people in our community. Mm-hmm.
And it's really cool. They give them little tickets and they can go in and find, they have some nice stuff in there, for interviews and all the money that if you don't, they can go in and pay with those. But then if your money gets donated back into the system, it's really cool.
Nice.
There you go.
Well, good deal. Okay, well, let's move on to the next artist. Now, this is David Gilmour, who is 76 years old, and Roger Waters, who is 79 years old. And this is Pink Floyd, obviously, classic Pink Floyd, the Pink Floyd which has Roger Waters on it before he sort of went a bit weird and then left. And this is, I'm picking it from Dark Side of the Moon, and it's Great Gig in the Sky.
Well, that's a good one that I hear a lot because, like I said, that's one of Charlie's favorite albums that I hear on repeat on actual vinyl in my house. Mm-hmm. So we hear that one a lot. But those are two people that I think have always kind of looked old to me, too, like Willie Nelson.
Well, maybe Roger Waters. I don't know. He always seems so angry. He doesn't seem to have any joy in his life.
Have you ever watched him on TV too? He's
very intense. There's
it's
no
the scowl.
I know that Conan once got him to break and do that. How can you have any pudding if you don't eat your meat thing from a brick in the wall? And he got him to do that on Conan O'Brien's late night show. And I think it was hard to get him to do that. I mean,
yeah, he has a very scowl-looking face to me. He looks like he's angry. Very direct.
I just wonder what his motivations seem to be driven by anger. Whereas David Gilmour, he just seems a lot more cool.
He just looks like a regular old man. Just like your average guy you walk down the street by.
Yeah, and as you know, I've spoken of David Gilmour before. I mean, his guitar playing is absolutely amazing. His lyrical style, his vibrato, his tone is amazing.
But you know what, though? Maybe it's just his stage persona. You know, Beyonce has Sasha Fierce, Roger Waters has a stage persona that's an angry old man.
I mean, it could be. I mean,
Or maybe he's just an angry old man.
I don't know what you hear about the way that he has business dealings with Pink Floyd these days. I get the impression he's just a really angry, grumpy old man.
Well, he left in the 80s, right? Like, didn't he like officially quit the band or
Yeah,
something?
he did. And then they came out with the album, The Division Bell. I think the last album featuring him was The Final Cut, which was a bunch of leftovers, really. And then they came out with The Division Bell. And I really like The Division Bell. The Division Bell was the very first Floyd album that I ever purchased. In fact, it was probably the very first Floyd album I ever heard. I went back way after the fact to hear the classic Floyd.
Did he do any solo music?
Who, Roger Waters?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Lots of solo music albums that he's done. And also he has the rights to the stage show The Wall.
Oh, I did know he's worth the most gross amount of money, I think, for anybody at Pink Floyd. I've heard that before, but that's probably why.
Songwriting and The Wall. He's been touring that Wall show for decades.
Huh. Interesting. I didn't know that. I mean, maybe I have heard some of his music and it doesn't stick out to me, but I'm not sure I knew he was a solo artist. I probably have heard it. It's just not something that's popping up in my brain.
No, it's very Floydy. Very, you know, if you like the work of Floyd, sort of classic Floyd, a lot of that stuff is very similar. But of course, it doesn't have Gilmour on it. Often the guitar player he uses is a guy called Snowy White.
I would never know that. But you know what I just thought of, Tim? We were talking about how like him, and then we were saying Willie Nelson kind of always looked old. You kind of hint on it earlier, though. If they did a lot of substances in their youth, that might be why they looked old very early, and then it just stayed.
I mean, that's very true. But, you know, you give the analogy of Hulk Hogan. I mean, he was probably wrestling on the carnival circuit 6 days a week before he got famous. So, I mean.
There we go. I don't know. But I mean, this is a great album, and like I say, I think it's one of the better albums you have to listen from beginning to end. You have to listen from point A to point B. Actually, I feel like that's the true for all Pink Floyd albums. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all it's a big operatic storytelling thing to me.
It is. And I like the live albums like Pulse, for example, where they play a lot of these albums in their entirety live. So you get the whole story, not just dipping in with effectively a live greatest hits compilation.
Well, and that's what Charlie likes about them. And you should have seen him, Tim, though, the first time he learned about the album that is one of your favorites, Flash, Savior of the Universe. I taught him that one, and that one was like mind-boggling to him.
I love the Flash Gordon soundtrack. And then what I love about the Flash Gordon soundtrack is it's an old-fashioned soundtrack where it has dialogue snippets between the songs. Mm-hmm. So you can listen to it completely independent of the film and still get the entire story of the film. Another album that's like that is the Smokey and the Bandit soundtrack. But Flash, of course, it's a Queen album with the film interlaced. I love it so much. I think it was actually last week was the last time I heard it in its entirety.
It's listened to a lot in our house, but I think Charlie listened to it, liked it, and didn't realize it was Queen. And then I was like, this is Queen, right? And he was like, oh, yeah. Like, it dawned on him after the fact. But anyway. But yeah, that's an album that gets played a lot in my house now.
Yeah, and as you know, I'm personal friends with Sam J. Jones, who played Flash Gordon.
Of course. I love that the only reason you watched the Ted movie is because he's in it.
Yeah, in fact, I haven't even seen the whole film. I've only ever seen the bits that have Sam J. Jones in it.
I still swear, though, in that movie, there are two, if you watch that when they're at the party with him, there are two parts in that movie that are the two of the funniest scenes I've ever seen in my life. The one is when the little bear is talking about how in the 90s, all they ever did was sing with vowels. And he starts like singing like Hootie and the Blowfish, giving examples of how all it mattered was just really sharp vowel sounds. And then there's the part where he's doing the thing where, where someone puts their hand down and they take the knife and they go like around their fingers with the knife. Yeah. And then he stabs the guy and he goes, "Oh, you stabbed me." And he goes, "Why did you trust me? I'm on drugs." And that is the funniest line to me. I remember I watched it in the movie theater, Tim. And have you ever had something that's gotten you so tickled, but it does nobody else for some reason? Mm-hmm. I was the only person who was dying laughing at those two parts in the movie theater. And everybody else is just looking at me like they missed what was so funny. I don't know why, but those two things killed me. Just killed me. There you go.
Well, there we are. Okay, well let's go on to the next one. Now, this is somebody who I've seen live. and I saw them at the Albert Hall in London before I moved here. This is Steve Miller and the Steve Miller Band, and he is currently 79 years old. And I have the track Abracadabra.
I will say that one makes sense to me. I would assume Steve Miller's in his 70s.
Yes.
I'm not, but it looks like it. It's just like the time frame. He's been making music for what since the 60s?
Yeah, basically late 60s.
So, I mean, he has to be kind of older. And he's still touring, right?
Yeah, in fact, he's touring right now. And Hannah loves Steve Miller. And that's why I took her to see Steve Miller at the Albert Hall. And I think the closest place he's playing is somewhere in North Carolina. It was at least 3+ hours away. And I said to her, did she want to go and see Steve Miller? And she said, well, we've seen Steve Miller at the Albert Hall. And she said, it's by the time you factor in a hotel and the tickets and the time, it's
a lot.
It's a lot. If we'd never seen Steve Miller, we would have done it. But we did see him at a great venue already.
That would be one that I would dabble with it if I hadn't seen them going out of my way. Now, Abracadabra is one of those songs that has been covered 1,000 times. Oh. There's so many covers of that song. And like I was thinking, there's like the 90s. What 90s band was it? Smash Mouth who did a version in the 90s, Tim?
Well, there's the one that's off that Sabrina the Teenage Witch album.
That one too. Maybe that is that one. I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah, I think it is, because you got me to listen to it when we did one of those episodes where you got me to listen to your music.
I personally made sure that was in the list for Tim. But yeah, I think it's Smash Mouth. But then there's also like, I swear there's been like in TV shows and stuff, I've heard other versions of Abracadabra.
Sure. And it's a really good song. I've played it. I used to do a duo with my friend who lives around the corner. And that was one of the songs that we had on our set. And I used to enjoy playing Abracadabra.
Well, it's also a very easily tangible song, I think. Pretty easy to play, pretty easy to sing. You know what I mean, Tim? It's not really that hard.
Well, that's the thing with the mighty Miller. He writes great songs, very memorable songs.
I mean, and it'll be stuck in, I can't sing it right now for copyright reasons, but I guarantee you it's stuck in our audience's head right now if they've ever heard Abra. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Now it's stuck forever. They're never getting it back.
No, that's it. It's stuck. It will never, ever leave.
Yeah. Also probably been in 1,000 movies and TV shows, so they probably made bank off that song.
Oh, sure. I once saw a video on YouTube of Steve Miller for his song Jet Airliner, and Boeing had a new aircraft out. I forget what one it was.
Yeah.
One of the 777, I think. And at their facility in Washington, where they build all the Boeing aircraft, as a kind of end of development party or launch party for the new aircraft, or the first one that rolled off the production line or something like that, they had Steve Miller and his band in the hangar performing a gig.
Yeah.
And they opened with Big Old Jet Airliner. It's just absolutely fantastic.
I think my favorite Steve Miller song, though, is Rocket Me.
Yeah, Rocket Me. We do that in Flaker Hill. I
think that's probably my favorite, because that's like from the Fly Like an Eagle, which, by the way, Charlie did not know was a remake. No. And I had to show him the original. But anyway, there's a version from the 90s.
Yeah. Again, if you had a greatest hits of Steve Miller, it's song after song after song after song, and every one of them is superb.
Yep, and he's still out there getting it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's talk about another artist who is still out there getting it done, celebrating that they're still with us and making great music. And that is Carlos Santana. Now, Carlos Santana is 75. And I've picked out maybe an obvious pick, but this is sort of a comeback album, comeback song to some degree for Carlos Santana. And this is the song Smooth with Rob Thomas from Matchbox 20.
See, and then Maria at the same time, right?
Yes, that's on the same album.
Those were two of when I was younger, I was obsessed with both those songs. I listened to them nonstop, probably on repeat for years of my life. I still do. Like, they still pop up on playlists regularly, often for me. I loved both those songs. And it's not like I'm a big Rob Thomas fan. To be honest, it's probably more the Carlos Santana part that I'm interested in because the riffs are so good. But yeah, those songs were big staples in my life. I do distinctly remember, and I've said this on the podcast many times, there was one time I got on the internet and Carlos Santana was trending on Twitter, and I thought for sure Carlos Santana had died, and it turns out it was just something happened on baseball. with a guy with the same name.
I know that's the problem with the Twitter trending. I mean, that's all kind of messed up now. It doesn't work how it should. But traditionally, you'd see like an artist like Carlos Santana is trending. And then you just think for the worst. You think, oh, no, have we lost the legend that is Carlos Santana? And then you look, and then it's just like a video of Carlos Santana that somebody liked and reposted 1,000 times.
Well, it just happened to be a baseball player hit like a home run with the same name. Because Carlos Santana's kind of a generic name. And so I was like, oh. But I really did. And it was like right whenever we had like all those people die at the same time as Glenn Frey, like a bunch of artists died all at once. And so I was like, okay, I'm starting to believe there's a hex over this town or this country. World.
Yeah, no, we have to protect Carlos Santana at all costs, for his amazing guitar playing, songwriting, and contributions to music. But also his interviews. Any interview with him is so entertaining. He speaks so eloquently. And like even like in guitar magazines, the things he comes out with, I mean, it's amazingly great.
Well, if you've never seen his Kennedy Center honors, he talks in it a few different times, and there's a bunch of different people who come in and like they play like music like his, and all the kind of stuff they do with the concerts. And he talks back and forth with the ghosts, and it is so interesting. If you've never seen it, Tim, he does. He speaks beautifully.
Yeah, there was I think I may have said this before, but there was a CBS Sunday Morning, I think it was, interview, and I forget who was interviewing him, and they said about your guitar and, what do you strive for when you solo? He said, when I play guitar, I want it to sound like a woman. And she's like, what do you mean? What does a woman sound like? And he said, divine, of course.
It's like, the Puss in Boots character on Shrek, where Antonio Banderas is doing the voice. It's pretty close to what Carlos Santana sounds like.
Yeah, and I didn't realize until Hannah told me that he makes ladies' footwear as well.
I didn't know that either. That's random.
I don't know if he still has them, but he used to have a line of shoes.
Oh. I mean, artists have to make their money somehow, and they don't get it selling their albums anymore. I
mean, like Katy Perry makes shoes, and that makes sense. But Carlos Santana making ladies' shoes is a little odd. But I mean, he's Carlos Santana at the end of the day. If he wants to make ladies' shoes, that's his business.
I mean, maybe he really enjoys it, Tim, and he's got a knack for it. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
If any of our listeners have Carlos Santana shoes, please write us and let us know how you like them.
Yeah.
That's all I got. All right. What's the next artist?
Okay. So this is somebody who's older than I thought she was. Again, we're celebrating her. This is Debbie Harry. She's 78. And, of course, lead singer of Blondie, as well as being a solo artist herself. And I've picked out the song Heart of Glass.
So ironically, you're talking about this. I was just watching a thing where her and Kelly Clarkson were they were in two different locations, but they were talking to each other via mic. It show her, and she asked like a Q&A question for Kelly Clarkson. And so she asked her what Kelly's, I don't remember what she said. Maybe she said, what's your range or something like that, like a singing question. And Kelly's like, I'm not really sure. My range varies, depending on different health factors, and kind of went into it or whatever. But right before she started talking, she was like, she looks so good. She goes, when I become her age, someone help me look like Debbie Harry. And I distinctly remember she's right. She looks great. She's wonderful.
She does. And I mean, all these people we're talking about and all the other people that I have on my list, and I will be publishing this playlist to Spotify and sharing it so everyone can listen to these songs if you want to. All of these artists, I mean, there's a few on here that very much look their age, though they're not acting their age. But there's so many on here that just look so young and so vibrant. Maybe
it's a misconception, Tim. Maybe we're stereotyping. Maybe they don't have to act their age. What really is acting your age, Tim?
Acting your age is being boring. That's what acting your age is.
I mean, you're 97 and you're still doing a podcast. So,
I mean, as I've said before, I mean, outside of podcast speak, I'm 48 years old. And I feel like the same little kid inside that I always did, who still wants the same things when he was 13 or 14. And that's what I have. And yes, I have to have a job. And yes, there's responsibilities and money and mortgages and stuff like that.
vacuuming carpets.
Yeah, but in reality, I'm the same little kid that wants to play his guitar, watch Knight Rider episodes, do cool things. I mean, that's all I want to do, really.
It's true. It's just the things that it's interesting. Some of the things that bring you happiness as a kid just continue on into your adult life. And, you kind of have this concept as a kid that, like, when you become adult, a lot of that stuff will shut off, and the biggest thing, though, that I swear you never learn as a kid, Tim, that they don't warn anyone about. If you're under the age of 18 and you listen to our podcast, hear me out. There's one thing they don't tell you. There will never be a day. It does not matter if you eat out. It does not matter if you go across the world, you are not cleaning your kitchen. Somehow, kitchens are always dirty, no matter how many times you clean them. And the other big one is they don't tell you how much time you spend wondering what you're going to eat.
That is true, because when you're a little kid, you don't have to think of that, because a parent typically would prepare the food for you.
You just eat it.
And then you just eat it. And it's just put in front of you, and you eat it, and you walk away. You don't have to think about it. But that's true. The amount of time you come home, well, what do we have in? Or maybe your partner will call you and say, "Oh, can you get Burger King on the way home?" Or it's that kind of thing.
Yeah, it always is. Like, I never realized as a kid how much energy is put into just figuring out what you're going to eat for your 3 meals a day.
That's true. And the other thing they don't tell you as a kid is that you think as a kid, adults have got it all figured out.
Yes.
Adults have not got it all figured out.
Like Tim says, we're basically still the same person we were as a kid.
Yeah. I mean, I've changed to some degree.
Yeah. I mean, we learned, but...
I mean, like, I'm sitting here in this room. I've got a Queen poster, a Moonraker poster, and a Ghostbusters poster, and a Brian May guitar in the cupboard. I mean, and a massive CD collection. I mean, that was me at 15.
I'm sitting beside a giant stuffed animal collection that Tim's never seen.
Yeah, I mean, and it's fine.
It's whatever. Well, it's whatever brings you happiness. And I think that it's become more acceptable to not just have the white picket fence looking thing. You know what I mean? Today, It's a little bit more acceptable. And, my house has got a giant rubber chicken, 74 Funko Pops, a dinosaur over there that break dances. And then there's also a grandfather clock. We have very eclectic taste in this house.
Yeah, and it's all fantastic.
Yep, there we go. So yeah, Tim, maybe we're the one with the wrong conception about what it is about acting your age. Maybe they are acting their age.
Yeah, maybe they are. But as I said, we are not taking this in a negative light. We're celebrating that these icons are still with us and are still rocking and getting it done.
But also, go buy their concert tickets if you can. Go now. Now's the time.
Okay, so let's move on to this. This is another combination. And both of these gentlemen are 79. This is Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. Of course, you know them from the Rolling Stones. And I've picked the song Tumbling Dice.
Oh, that's a great song. I haven't heard or thought of that song in a while, Tim. Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah, I like that. That's I would say it's one of my favorite Rolling Stones songs, but it's way up there.
As I've said many times, I am not the biggest Rolling Stones fan. I'm a little bit more than your casual listener. But what is amazing to me is when you pull back the layers of, like, the music and the Rolling Stones. The lyrics are always very diverse, very interesting, very intelligent. They layer the rock sound with that kind of bluesy swagger type thing. It's very, very, very cool the way they make their music to me. Mm-hmm. You don't hear it from a lot of other bands. That's why I think they stand the test of time.
Yeah, and they are probably the world's best rock and roll band. Their music has gone through so many different sort of genres. They've embraced disco, they've embraced funk, but at their heart and soul, they are a rock and roll band. And the fact that they're still out there, they're still touring, Mick Jagger's still running around on stage. I mean, Keith Richards, what I understand, he's actually immortal. I think that's how it works.
That's what I was going to ask. He kind of looks a little bit like the Crypt Keeper, but don't come for me, internet. It's true. Tim's face, he just about died when I said that, everybody. But anyway, I think he is immortal, definitely.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I always assumed Lemmy was immortal, but we found out later on that he was not immortal. But I think Keith Richards probably is.
Well, and Yeah, honestly. And that's a great example of a band who we know partook in a lot of substances back in the day.
Oh, he after he supposedly got clean, he did like a PSA on MTV, and he said, "Oh, kids, I've been there. I've done all the drugs. Don't do it. It's a fool's game. Stay clean. All this kind of. Was it the Dare program? He was involved in that." And then one of these comedians said, "That's fine, Keith, but you did all the drugs. There's none left to do."
It's true. And it's like, you don't have to watch. If you watch his body, the way his face moves and his mannerisms, you're like, the PSA didn't have to tell me you did drugs. I already knew. But I do say, Tim's like, the best kind of showman, rock and roll, true to their core. They're also, I think it also helps. They put on one of the best stage shows. Like they really take the whole rock and roll stage show thing to the next level. So that kind of plays into that.
Yeah. I saw the Rolling Stones in the 90s at Wembley Stadium, and it was on the Voodoo Lounge tour. And it was the old Wembley Stadium. I mean, the new Wembley and old Wembley are in the same place, but the buildings are different. Back in the old days, the Twin Towers of Wembley Stadium. And that was fantastic. They played all the hits. I mean, it was great.
Well, that's another band that if you wrote out every hit they've ever had, it's huge.
Oh,
huge.
I mean, they played 2.5 hours. And I mean, they could change their set list every night and not have any duplicates because they have so many hits in their repertoire.
And as we learned, we can blame Bruce Springsteen for the long concerts, 3 hours, 4 hours. Yeah,
I said if you're a Bruce fan, I mean that's value for money. I mean, deep tracks, 3+ hours gigs. I mean, I'm not, as we mentioned before, I'm not a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, but if you are, what a great show to go to.
Yeah, Paul McCartney himself said he's the reason why concerts are as long as they are now. So there we go.
There we are. Well, I tell you what, let's move on to Paul McCartney. So he's on my list too. So Paul McCartney is 81. He headlined Glastonbury last year. This year, he didn't actually play at Glastonbury. But what's interesting, the Foo Fighters set, he was off to the side of the stage all the way through the Foo Fighters set. And I went back and watched the footage a second time. And in a couple of the shots, you can see Paul at the side of the stage, just like having the best time because he's friends with Dave Grohl, obviously.
Of course he is. That all makes sense. That checks out.
But I mean, I know people in my life who are 80 odd years old. I wouldn't see them at the side of the stage watching the Foo Fighters having a great time.
No, but I will say Paul McCartney is one of those people. Like I remember when I watched him in the Carpool Karaoke that came out probably 3 years ago or something, 2 or 3 years ago. He comes off very mentally there. Like there's not he doesn't seem even remotely removed. Like he was very interested in the people and talking about modern artists and what's going on. And yeah, I mean, physically he looks great, but he eats really well. He does good stuff. It's almost like being, when they say, people who are nice on the inside, it reflects on the outside. That's what I imagine with him. I just think he's a really nice person. And so, but yeah, he has probably out of everyone on the list, I think he's aged the best.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the song I picked out was Maybe I'm Amazed, which is a love song to Linda McCartney, who was sadly lost a number of years ago. But yeah, Paul looks great. He sounds great. He's got that book out at the moment with all the Beatles photographs. I mean, there needs to be some kind of preservation order placed on Paul because I want Paul around forever.
Well, he's already been body swapped once, Tim.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, because
so they've already got it worked out.
It's actually his brother. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So they got that whole thing worked out, everybody. So, I mean, it's fine. He's going to live forever. But in all seriousness, was Linda McCartney, now she was the one, did she do all the vegetarian food?
That was it. Yeah. She was very passionate about cruelty to animals and being a vegan and all that sort of stuff. And then she came up with the Linda McCartney line of food and things like that. I think Paul's been a vegetarian, if not his whole life, basically his whole life.
The only reason I bring that up is because I remember it was available in the UK and it wasn't available in America, and I was very disappointed about that.
Can you buy Linda McCartney stuff here now?
You can. I think you can order it online. I don't know that you can find it locally, but you can get it. And there was a time where I think it was in Target and stuff at one point. Mm-hmm. But yeah, for a longest time, you couldn't get it in America. It was only available in the UK.
There we are. I remember it being in the supermarkets, but I wasn't a vegetarian at that point, so I didn't pay a lot of attention to it.
Fair enough. Huh.
But there we go. Okay, well, there's one person on here that I have to mention, and it would be Brian Harold May, Dr. Sir, MBE, all of his various characters.
Just works for NASA on the side.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff, stereo photography and all the other things, as well as being a rock star. And he is 75, and he's got the box set and expanded edition of Starfleet that's coming out, in fact, tomorrow. But by the time you listen to this episode, it will be out and available to stream and all that kind of stuff, or purchase.
Well, he obviously released it for my birthday tomorrow, Tim.
Is it your birthday tomorrow?
Tomorrow's my birthday.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, enjoy. Happy birthday for tomorrow.
Brian May actually called and asked when he was picking out the dates.
Yeah, he said, I typically try and release my Gold Series reissues on Joy's birthday. It's as a rule.
And on that one podcaster that I know from that podcast where that one guy's obsessed with me and the other one smiles and laughs. That birthday.
That one, yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Well, I picked out the song. This is from the game, and this is a song, Sail Away, Sweet Sister, which is an album track, but it features Brian May on lead vocal.
See, I'm not sure I remember this. I don't know if I know this song, but I will say the solo music Tim made me listen to from Brian May was my favorite out of the entire thing he made me listen to.
Well,
the album was the best.
Well, I'm glad you liked it. As I said, Back to the Light was a very important album for me growing up. The second album, Another World, is okay. And in fact, in the reissue form and having heard it again with fresh ears, I think I actually really like it. But that first album is a soundtrack of my youth, 100%.
Well, and I didn't know it because I talk about, Charlie likes this kind of music a lot. The song Back to the Light actually comes up on one of the playlists Charlie listens to all the time. And I didn't realize it was the same until you made me listen to it. And then I heard it playing one day in the background. So
there we
Charlie
go.
probably wouldn't know it was Brian May either. But if I told him, he'd be like, oh, okay, cool. I mean, there's not much more we can say about him. I've never met a person who's done like everything. Like the man has literally done everything. Like Tim will be like, he did that like 74 times ago. What?
Yeah, he it's like him and Bruce Dickinson. And I said we covered Bruce Dickinson, flying airplanes and speaking 4 languages and beating cancer and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Brian May, it's the same. Yeah, he's working on science projects with NASA and has a stereo photography company. And he's saving animals. And he's a rock star. And this, that, the other, it's...
He produces really good clocks or tells Tim which ones to buy. I don't know. Next, you're going to tell me he starts his own clock brand.
No, he has his own guitar manufacturing company.
Of course he does. Why wouldn't I have figured that one out? He's also actually best friends with Jesus.
I don't know.
Call each other.
Oh, and I think he speaks Spanish reasonably fluently as well.
Of course. I mean, it's just funny because Tim will be talking about and knocking off things, talking about him. I'd be like, oh, what's next? Did he next thing you know, it's going to be like, he hand produced the food that fixed world hunger or something.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Anyway, so that's how I feel about Brian May. I've never met anybody who's done as much as him.
But there we are. He's making the most of his life, and he continues to, and long may he continue to do that.
Yeah, he's still literally concert touring every week.
Yeah, they're still touring. I mean, the last time they toured as Queen and Adam Lambert, everyone said, "Oh, this is going to be the last one for them," and then it's like, "No, we go back out again. We love it so much." So I mean,
I wish they'd come up with more creative concert tour names, but
the Rhapsody tour.
Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, I could have guessed that one. Like if you if someone asked you, pick the most cliche Queen tour name, that would be like the first thing that would come to mind.
Yeah, Queen on tour, They Will Rock You.
I was going to say, you literally took the one. I was going to say, we are here to rock you or something. Stupid is the marketing material. All right. Anyway.
All right, well, let's move on to another one. So this is someone I don't think we've really covered on this podcast till now. This is Rod Stewart.
Not really, no.
No, he's 78 years old. He's still out playing. He sort of went into this thing where he was doing the Great American Songbook of doing standards for some time, though. I think he's still out there playing and he's still playing his hits. And then the track that I picked for this episode was "Do You Think I'm Sexy?"
I thought you were going to say "Forever Young" because of I mean, that works too. So, what's funny is, so him and his wife. Have you ever seen his wife? She's significantly taller than him. Tall model, very pretty woman. I'm not judging, but it's funny because there was a TikTok trend. If you want my body, that was going on, and it was that little part, from that song. And him and his wife did the TikTok trend, and it was so great. It was one of my favorite videos I've ever seen on the internet.
Yeah. Do you know, I think, and the more I think about it, because it's Rachel Hunter is his wife, isn't it? Is that correct? So
I think so, yeah.
When I saw Bon Jovi at Wembley Stadium with Van Halen supporting, which is weird, but Bon Jovi were headlining, there was a couple there that looked exactly like Rod Stewart and Rachel Hunter. And people were going up to them for autographs and stuff. And they said, "Rod." And he said, "No, that's not me." And I still convinced that it was them.
That's like when me and Charlie went to New York this past year. And Tim kind of got to go because we Zoomed half of his friends for like 5 minutes while we were walking through Central Park. Charlie is convinced we saw the actor Steve Martin in Central Park. Convinced. No one can tell him otherwise because he says he turned and looked at him. And he started to say, "Is that?" And he looked at him like, "Don't you dare." And so Charlie just shut up. But he swears he saw him.
It's possible. Now I come to think of it, one New York trip I did a number of years ago in Central Park again, Hannah's convinced it was Howard Stern and his wife. And it was the same kind of thing. Like you saw them and you thought, is that Howard Stern and his wife, Beth? And then you think about it and you look away and you look gone, and of course they've walked away, and you're like,
Well, Charlie, of course, gave it a goog as soon as that happened. And Steve Martin has an apartment close to, like, across the road from Central Park. So that kind of solidified what Charlie thought. Because it's like the rich area, the old money area right around Central Park where you've got those huge apartments. It makes sense that Steve Martin would have an apartment in there. Yeah,
Central Park West is a very upscale place to live in New York City. And as you say, lots of celebrities have places on Central Park West. But curiously, who else lives in Central Park West? And that's Dana Barrett, the lady in Ghostbusters, who somehow has a very fancy, ritzy apartment in Central Park West. And all she appears to do in the episode of the film of Ghostbusters is play her cello.
I mean, I wish that I made enough money to simply playing one instrument in one show that I could afford that. Good on her. I don't know. Weird.
But maybe it was different back in the 80s. I don't know. Maybe you could afford an apartment in Central Park West. I don't know.
It's kind of like when people talk about the Friends apartment, Tim, and how could they afford that? And then there's a whole thing about maybe it was rent control. You could have like the rent controlled apartments but like the purple apartment that she's a cook and she's like a waitress, and they live beside the two guys, and one of them's like a scientist, the other one's an actor, and like they're like, none of these jobs line up in the amount that they'd all be able to live in the same apartment complex. I mean, they're not wrong. Well, there you
go. There we are. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to do one more artist that we're celebrating for still being around, getting it done, and celebrating they've got up to this mighty age. And I couldn't not include Dolly Parton. She's 77. Again, she needs an immortality preservation order placed on her.
Well, call up Brian May and have him develop the serum.
He could probably do that. And the song that I picked for Dolly was "The Coat of Many Colors."
Well, that one's a good one for this episode since it's about literally a coat from her childhood. So it's based on a real thing. And if you go to Dollywood, like Tim says, you can see the coat.
It's the coat is in the Chasing Rainbows Museum. You come into Dollywood, you go through the where you pay to come in, and then you go past that. I think it's the Heart Song Theatre. No, not Heart Song Theatre. The Theatre of Legends or something. And then you do a right, and then you do a right again. And that's where the Chasing Rainbows Museum is. And as you go up the stairs and then you go around the corner, there it is, the Coat of Many Colors.
Yep. I've seen it many times. There's also a lot of butterfly-related things in there. As me and Tim said, the butterflies are everywhere.
Yeah, but it's just remarkable to see the actual coat from the song, the one that she speaks of.
Well, And I think that it says a lot about her because, we were talking earlier about her philanthropy. That word did not come out. My mouth is really dry. Philanthropy work. Still laughing at myself for that one. It literally felt weird coming off the tongue, but anyway. So her wanting to help, her immediate community. Well, think about the story she tells about she grew up in. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, 100%.
Plus, I kind of ruined it. We knew Dolly was going to be on the episode, and I had to mention her earlier.
Well, there we go. As I said, this episode, we're celebrating these people. We're celebrating that they're still around getting it done. Age is only a number, really. They're all playing music and having a great time, and we're lucky that we get to still enjoy them.
It's ironic that tomorrow is my birthday, and we're discussing ages.
Well, there we are. It was a complete coincidence.
I'm obviously 79. Duh.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Subtract 4 plus 6 divided by 2.
That's too much maths for a Thursday night.
Well, I can't even say philanthropy. It won't come off my tongue right. I give up. That word.
Well, we should quit while we're ahead. So you have any final thoughts for everyone, Joy?
Just be kind and no, that's it. Drink lots of water. Stay hydrated.
All right, stay hydrated and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.